Hi, welcome to another very informative video of Python, and in this case it contains content that is very fundamental and very basic before we look at pandas, which is the Python datasets module for analyzing data and looking at all the file manipulation methods. But this is very important. If we have the basics, then we are good to go. So let's use Python to do the file reading, the file editing, and all other file manipulation stuff in this video. So let's get started. So I found it important to get some questions that we can learn with throughout our revision. So we shall be using these that I got from somewhere. At least when I do one question while explaining it, it's a good kickoff to do the other. So let's look at these questions where we are going to read this text. I'll output the first 90 characters of it. Then the second question will be to get a single string character and the file path as the parameters in one of the functions that we will create, and then we return the number of characters in them and others. So let's do one and we see how we can get about it as we get started. So let me open my code editor, in this case Visual Studio Code, and we look at the first question that says we read the lorem.txt file and then print out the first 90 characters of its content. So the lorem.txt file is here. You can even have its space, like let's say we can put it the other side, and in this case we can create a Python file that will do what they want. Okay, let's create let me just make it question1.python, and we have this text file. So on reading it, as we know, if we store our file in this called lorem.txt, let's say we store it in a variable var, and we say that it's like this, and then we print our var. Let's see what happens. We can see that when we do this, an object is created like this without any method that we've applied to it. So if we give it this mode as .read, it really will print out the contents of this file. So let's go ahead to enhance our file. As we already see that we have our file opened, and we can print it as many times as we can. So let's try to do this one, and we again say let's print it two times and we see what will happen. Okay, so what happens is that Python is printing space here because when this variable, it contains this file. So whenever you execute a statement and the cursor is at the last of the content, so that's where Python will start from if it was here, and the rest of what it is printing will be the space. But let's say we stored this file in some variable, I would be able to get it better. So let's see how we can enhance this, and we call it as maybe my file. Then okay, let's just store it in a content variable, and we give it my file. Equals to, we say my file is equal to val dot read, and then not as content, then, and we print our my file because it's stored in this content from the rolem.txt is stored in my file. So let's try to print that, and we see how it will behave, and we print it many times as we can. Let me first delete this part, and we can see that our file is printed twice. So that's how we can go about that. So next, we have to put into consideration that whenever we open a file, it is created in a memory, in a computer memory, then, and if it stays there, that space that it is occupying when running with other processes is catered for. So we have to reduce that space that is being occupied by this running action, by this open file here in our program. So after doing all the operations we do on this file, we should have something that closes that file. So this file has a close method, and after reading it, that's why we apply a close method here, and then let's run it. It gives the same output, though now we have freed up the memory. So let's look at the enhanced version of this as we start our question, and we move on very fast. Let me just comment out this, and we now void of this closing our files as we use this enhanced method with open lorem.txt. Originally it had no argument, but now let's give it an argument of read. There is read for reading the file, there is w for writing into the file and overwriting everything, there is x which doesn't overwrite the file but puts content in the file, there is a that appends appends to a file with also if you want to append and read or append and write at the same time. So let's just for the moment give it arrow as the argument, and we open it as my file, or we can open it as, okay, my file will be fine, and then we have to store it in a content variable, as we say content equals to lorem equals to my file dot read. After reading it, our question was saying we read the 90 characters, so here we specify like 90 characters, and then when we get out of the block, it's automatically closed, it replaces this. By now we are familiar with this code, and I can delete it. So let's just read this. We just print it. print the content, and we can see that it prints only the 90 characters that we want. So far, this is the question 1 that is done. So let's move to question 2. Create by. And question 2 was like we write a function that gets a single string character and a file path, those two as parameters, and then returns the number of occurrences of the number of characters in the file. So let's write that function, we define it, and we call it maybe we call it occurrences, and it takes 2 parameters, one which is a character, I can call it extra, and the next one is file path, and inside its block it is gonna open that file, any file that will be passing into it, let's say with open, then it will be opening what? Right now we shall be passing this file path as an argument. We don't need to enclose this one in quotes because it's already known, and we have to open it with the read options. Then let's open it as maybe any file, and open it as anything, and we now store its content. Content is not a keyword, it's just any word generated. For my case, content, like it will be that any file, then dot read its contents, and after reading it, then I want to see the number of characters that any file contains, but in this case we want to use the count method for Python to count the number of occurrences of the character, of any character that will pass. So let's just say maybe we say content dot count, then we are counting what? We are counting the character, and this time round we print this count, but we can also store it in some variable called maybe occurrences. Occurrence is already given to a function, maybe occurs equals to this, and what we have to do right now is to just print we have to print our occurs. You can modify this according to what you want to be seen on the screen, like you can even format it and say character this one appears this number of times. Okay, we can even include it there for the purposes of just learning. And let me just put this one, and I say the character, then this which is known as extra occurs, then occurs times, because occurs is the word that we know, then occurs we can call this as times, no problem. Occurs times. This is what the reader will be seeing out of this, which doesn't affect our code in any way. So let's just call our function and see if it does what we expect it to. Occurrences, and then we give it any file path and any character. Maybe we are looking for O, and we are giving it the file path as maybe in rolem.text, and let's just run this and see what it will give us. Yes, the character O occurs 29 times. Yes, so we can see that is, if we go to rolem.text and we calculate the number of times that O occurs, it will be equivalent to this, I'm sure. So let's go for question 3. Don't waste a lot of time in this simple things. We call it question 3.py. And question 3 had it like use Python to create a file with name file.txt and write the word Python there, which is okay. So let's just start with, we are going to open any file. This time around, the file we're gonna open is a new file that is not existing in the files that we have right now in our questions. So we can just generate any file name for our case. Maybe Python. Maybe let's say question 3. And then we call it .text, and we give it the, this time around, not the read function but the write, not the read argument, but with the write argument. So as my file, and I say we say this time around, no need to store it, no need to store the contents of my file in anything like content, anything like what, because we won't extract them, and just it is to write. So I might say my file dot write, then we put what we want to write in this file, which was Python. So as we run this code, it will write Python in our question 3.text. That is question 3 done. Now let's do question 4. Text dot Python, and question 4 was like we create a first.text file that contains the first 90 characters of the rolem.text file. So now let's look at this one. We are going to create a first.text file that contains the first 90 characters of the rolem.text file. Okay, which is almost the same as question what? As question 1, but set differently. Let's look at it. So what we are going to do, we are going to create a first.text file which is ready for to be written in or being appended in content, and we have to append there the content of the first dot the content of the rolem.text file. So that's quite easy. So let's just open with open. We are opening a first.text file, text file with, we are to open it with the right with the right privileges as my file with any name, let's say my file. Okay, let's now say since right now we are to read the content from lorem.txt, let's not just write before reading the lorem.txt file. So we just say with open the lorem.txt file with read privileges as lorem, and we just say content is equaling to lorem.read. I'm going to read its content, and after reading it, this variable content now contains the content of lorem as a string. So this string is the one we're gonna append, we're gonna write into our my file. But look, we are writing there only 90 characters, so we have to say my file dot write then content. So as easy as that, were we told to read it, create a first file, a first.txt file that contains the first 90 characters of this, and this is very simple. So just stop there and we run our code. Let's look at what happens in the text.file. Wonderful. This is the first 90 characters that we've written, but from the lorem.txt file. So let's go to question 5, and we also see how it looks like. And question 5, we are given this: append the text of lorem.txt to lorem1.txt, and in other words, lorem1 should thereafter have its contents and that of lorem.txt. So we are going to open lorem.txt with read privileges, and we are also going to open lorem1.txt with append privileges, so that we can append the content from lorem.txt on top of lorem1.txt. So let's look into our files. We look for lorem1.txt and then we add content for lorem.txt, which is quite easy, so we don't have it here. And for the purposes of learning, let me just create it myself, and I again wrap the code lorem1.txt with open then lorem1.txt, then as my file. I just want to write there. Before writing there, I give it privileges of write. Then my file dot write. Let me just say this is the content in lorem1 dot text file. Then on top of this, it's where we are going to write the other one. So this is the content that I've written there. I don't have to keep with this code because it's not among the question we are going to attempt. And now let's tackle this question readily. Append the text of lorem.txt to lorem1.txt. Okay. let's open with open rem1.text. What is gonna happen here is that we are going to read it, we are going to open it with the append function, but at the same time after we shall open it with the append and then with other privileges of read and write, and as my file, that's where we put a press actually, so we can even go to the Python module and we see we get help, on open. That's how easily you can learn it with this documentation. And after pressing a space for the other page, we see that all the privileges or the arguments are written here. So read is for the reading, writing this way and that way. So you can see that the default mode is this for reading the text, and we can enhance it with just using a plus sign. Okay, let's just continue with this one open and with lorem open. Open this with read privileges. Let me just call it lorem. So we are going to read its contents. Equals to lorem dot read, and we are writing the content on top of what is already existing in my file. So we'll just say my file dot write, because if we didn't put the plus sign on top of the append, so it would rewrite the whole thing. But right now we are adding on the content that we already have. Content, and then instead of starting from where it was, and let's first, before writing anything, we say my file dot seek to take the cursor at the first position, at the first line, dot seek 0, and then from there we'll write our content. So this will execute, and then we go and we see what is. Let me see if we have some error. Python says no such file or directory. Yes, lorem is we have lorem.txt, not only lorem.txt, and then we rerun. Yes, now it has been executed. So let's check what is in the lorem1. Yes, we can see that on top of this content from lorem has been added. This is the one that we had in lorem1. So that's the way. As we can also use some other method to skip a line here in Python as usual, as using the escape character and the n, which is also fine. we can just write this one and we format by after breaking that line, and from there let's first delete the content that is already existing in this, and we see what happens. After executing this. Okay, so if we check, we find that our new line has been created. So that's it for this question 5. As we go for question 6. Question 6 had this following question. The content of data.txt file looks like this, and then we are going to use Python to modify the content of data.txt so that it appears like this. So if we can be observant, we are seeing that line 1 has been duplicated down here. So the trick is that we are going to use Python to read this line and again print it or append it after this file on top of it. Quite easy, and that one I can just leave it at that for our case, and we can do it ourselves. Only that here I shall just leave a hint that instead of reading the whole Python file, we are going to read line. This reading the line, it will read the first line of the file instead of reading all the lines which are ever in this format. Read lines, and they put the slicing inside, but read line will do what we are aiming at doing. So that's enough for this video, and now let's get into pandas module, which is the Python datasets module for analyzing data. Then we make conclusions with other things so that we can get a good way to train our models, and we see how they are to react in a certain environment given the data they are going to work with. So let me talk to you in the next video. Thanks for watching. You can subscribe and we can keep revising together, and you give it a like. Thank you.